So we're holding chapter Kuf Bet 102. Very important chapter. It's a little bit lengthy and it's divided into two parts. The first half, you will notice, is reminiscent of past chapters where David HaMelech focuses on a very, very powerful prayer. And this prayer was designed for anyone who is in a tzara, any type of trouble, very deep trouble. And the segula for this chapter is specifically for someone who does not have children because of some infertility problem. So the segula, the special spiritual remedy where this chapter has power for, is for that purpose. But it is designed, you will see, for a prayer to be said in all kinds of times of trouble. The second half is more familiar perhaps from the last chapters, deals with the end of days, messianic times. So it's interesting how he combines the two, and you will notice as we go along why he combines the two, how they two fit in together. So the words here are about a poor man. The prayer of the poor man, ki yaftov, when he is enveloped or immersed. There's different ways of interpreting the word ya'atof. It could be when he covers himself up. But here it is more of a type of immersion, when he's very deeply immersed in prayer, because that's all he can do to help his situation. His mazal is not too bright. He's tried everything perhaps. Nothing seems to help. So all that we have left in those kind of situations is tefillah. We're told that's the most powerful tool. So the poor man knows it very, very well, because that's all he has. That is all he can do. So he is immersed in a prayer, and he pours out his heart, or his tale, his prayer, before Hashem. So why does David HaMelech compare this to a poor man? Why is the emphasis here on the poor man? Simply because the poor man has nothing. And this is an important idea because, as we will see later on, he's saying that even the generation of Mashiach may not have ma'asim, they may not have too many deeds, too many merits to be redeemed. They at the very least have prayer. So when everything fails, when nothing seems to help us, we should remember to turn to him. But it's not only because the poor man has nothing else. It's also because Hashem loves the prayer of the poor. The Zohar says that there's a special echal, a special place in heaven just for the prayers of the poor, because they are heartbroken. So their prayers seems to go in. They are allowed in. Even though today, as you know, after the temple has been destroyed, the gates are closed. They're not completely locked, but they're closed. In order to break through the gates of prayer, one needs to cry. One needs to work hard. The prayer of the poor man goes in. And it's sometimes in the merit of a poor man within the community, within the congregation. They're all praying for the same thing. They're praying for rain. They're praying for their livelihoods. It could be that it's in the merit of the poor man's prayer that all their prayers will be accepted. This is, of course, a prayer to be said by those in exile. David HaMelech designed many of the prayers here, Libnei Hagolah, for those who will be in the long diaspora. Don't forget to turn to Hashem, especially during the times, imagine when they were persecuted, during the times of the Inquisition, during the Holocaust. We've had our ups and downs in exile. So this is specifically designed for those kind of situations. As you will see, some of the descriptions of the Pesukim here, I think, fit in perfectly with the times of World War I, World War II, during the Holocaust. Adonai shim'at tefillati v'shavati elecha tavo. Pasuk Bet, he says, Hashem, hear my prayer, let my cry reach you. So what's the difference between tefillati and shavati? Most people who read this, who say this, may not pay attention to the small detail, either because they don't know Hebrew, and they're just reading from the English or from some other translation, or because they're just in a hurry. There's always emphasis on words that are chosen. He chooses them for a specific reason. One is a tefillah. Tefillah is a prayer, we're familiar with that, but one is a prayer said, not necessarily when you're already in trouble, before the trouble ever comes. Prayer should always be said. We say it on a regular basis, not only to thank Hashem, not only to praise Hashem, but to recognize the fact that we are dependent on Him. We want to make that connection. And if a connection is made, hopefully that prayer will make sure that we don't get into trouble, that we don't become sick, that we live our life peacefully. So that is tefillah, that the things that happen, unfortunately, to many people, whether it's pain and suffering, illness, loss of a job, that should never happen. So we're always asking for livelihood, we're asking for health, we're asking all of these things in our regular daily prayers. But b'shav'ati, sometimes things go bad, even though bad is not a real good word to use, because there's nothing bad that comes from Shamayim. But that's the way we describe when things are not going the way we would prefer them to go. But what do we know? Our present situation is what Hashem wants it to be. So it's always good. Still, He expects of us to pray to Him. So in other words, sometimes He puts us in a situation just for that alone. I want you to pray to me, that's all. Once you've prayed to me, then I will remove that source of trouble. So Shav'ati, which is my cry, it's a prayer about crying out, is talking about a time where we are already in trouble. So hopefully let it reach you, and you will hear it. Why say reach you? Doesn't it reach you? No, not necessarily, as we will soon see. There's a difference between a prayer by oneself or whether you pray together with more people in a congregation, tefillah b'tzibur. Prayer with kavanah or without kavanah. All of these make a difference. Is it really intent? Is it really sincere? There are no sins on one's record. Because if a person is asking for something and there's a lot of accusations against him, then that prayer is almost thrown out. They don't want to listen to him. He's excommunicated. So, does that mean we should give up hope just because a person misbehaved, just because he did the wrong thing? Well, Hashem is not going to listen to me anyway. Be very careful with that, because Hashem says, I want you to pray anyway. Because the prayer itself has the power to bring you closer to me. You finally will realize that you depend on me. Perhaps you forgot about that. So, regardless of a person's situation, he should never say, who am I to pray? I don't think you will ever listen to me. Never say that. So that's why you have these pesukim many, many times repeat themselves about prayer. Always pray to Hashem. This will rebuild the connection that may have been there in the past that unfortunately became weak over time. So what could happen? What could happen to our prayers? Why wouldn't they be answered? One reason is what the Torah says, that if the Jewish people unfortunately become very distant from Hashem, even though they may not merit to see blessing, it could get worse than that. There could be a point where there will be hastarat panim. So if you follow the Torah, if you read it well, study it, you will notice that there's various degrees of distance from above. Just like there's distance between us and Hashem sometimes, various degrees or levels, Hashem also has various degrees where He distances Himself more and more. One of the worst ones, perhaps the worst, is hastarat panim. He conceals His face. So David HaMelech is saying, I know that that's what's going to happen in the galut, in the long diaspora. God, al taster panecha. Don't conceal your face from me. B'yom tzarli ateh elai oznecha b'yom ekra maher aneni. So don't conceal or don't hide your face from me in the day of my distress. Turn your ear to me on the day that I call, and maher aneni, answer quickly. Also very valuable information over here. What exactly is he talking about? So hastarat panim is a concept that as Jews we know has happened in the past. As we get closer to Mashiach, little by little that veil that's been concealing Hashem's face, so to say, will be removed, and we will see more miracles in the open. We will see the Hashgacha, His divine providence, more clearly. But throughout the Galut, especially imagine through the Holocaust, people ask, where is God? So that's an example of hastarat panim. And when that happens, the prayers are not heard. Still, as we said, you have to call out to Hashem, you have to try your best to pray to Him. But why does He say Maher Aneni? So there is one commentary that says that this is talking about a situation where Hashem hears the prayer, but He puts it away in some box. Yes, that individual made a request of me, I'm going to put it aside. No, don't just hear my prayer and put it aside. Maher Aneni, answer my prayer. So you see how you have to be specific? It's very important to know how to pray and how to ask. Otherwise, we may not be as effective. So here, he's reminding us, through these words that he is asking, this is the type of prayer that you should put together before Hashem. Times of trouble, Ateh Elai. In other words, turn your ear to me. Hashem has to turn his ear to us, not that he has an ear. It is a way of saying, don't look aside. Here I'm trying to do whatever I can by praying to you. Please accept this. Maher Aneni, and of course, answer us quickly because the things are very, very difficult. It's been a long exile, and as a result of the long exile, more and more Jews have become more distant, lost. Not forever, God forbid, but still lost. And they don't know you. So this prayer is not only intended for us, it's intended for the people who are living during these times, during the times of trouble, that they should call out and say, Hashem, this is for your sake, not just for us. That they should not forget about you. That's always a very powerful point to add to any prayer. Don't do it for me, do it for you. Here you're going to see various pesukim that are very descriptive of not only how time goes by quickly, but how the Jewish people suffered in ways that if we would not have photographs from the Holocaust, we would not understand what he's saying. I believe that some of what he's saying applies to those days, because if you've ever seen pictures of the Holocaust, you will understand this a little bit better. So, these are a little bit difficult words, but this is more or less what he's saying. My days have vanished like ashan, like smoke, have gone by quickly. My bones are dried up as in a hearth, where there's coals burning, always fire. They've been completely burnt up, my bones. So what is he saying? So the first part, that my days have gone by quickly, he's talking about the days of the exile, but he's also talking about life. Life in general goes by very, very quickly, ki'ashan, like smoke. And what happened during this short life? It was difficult. Atzmotai kimoked nicharu. He's talking about bones being burnt up. If you look at the pictures of the Holocaust, you will see not only people that were cremated, people who have basically nothing of their flesh left except for skeletons, as a result, of course, of being deprived of any nutrition. And this is the way it has been in many, many places throughout our exile. Just people are unaware, they have not studied the history. And here he's describing, he's giving us a glimpse of what the exile has been like. So all these days, they've gone by, and how have they been? Atzmotai kimoked nicharu. It was the physical body suffered so much during this time. Perhaps the reason why he compares life to smoke is simply because it goes by quickly, just like smoke drifts and disappears. And the body, as a result of that time that goes by so quickly, and it is suffering in the midst of all that exile, does not accomplish or does not have the time to properly focus on Torah mitzvot. And he has said this in the past. Borei Olam, look, time goes by quickly. Life is short. We've suffered. So what is there left? How can we observe the Torah mitzvot if this is the type of situation where kalu be'ashan yamai and atzmotai kimoked neharu, in other words, the body has really, really suffered, has been broken, has been pained to the point where It's all burnt up, in other words, from so much pain and suffering. I also said that it means literally burnt because it could be referring or insinuating that there were times in history where the bodies were actually burnt. But if we apply it to the long exile, it could mean anything from torture in Spain to any type of pain and suffering that they had to endure. It has become so burnt from all that pain. So as a result of the short time and all that suffering, what can we do? How much can we accomplish during this short period of time in those kind of circumstances? This is also somewhat of a continuation. I was hit, smitten, like the grass. Vayivash libi, in my heart, I guess you could say dried up, withered. Ki shachachti mechol lachmi, I even forgot to eat my bread. How do you forget to eat your bread? Well, when there's so much trouble and so much pain, there's no time to think about eating. But the commentaries say that here, shachachti mechol lachmi, I think it's actually the Targum, the translation here, the Aramaic translations, describes a situation where, because of our physical condition, that I was withering and dry and smitten, I could not focus on lachmi, my bread, meaning the Torah. I was not able to absorb the Torah, I was not able to learn the Torah. And I forgot it. Unfortunately, many have been deprived of it. I wish I could say this, but I'm afraid to say it. There are a lot of Jews, unfortunately, who have no Torah only because they were sent to public schools. Either the parents could not afford a Jewish education, and they were deprived. It's not their fault completely. But shachachti mechol lachmi, they forgot to eat their bread. How did they forget? The parents, of course, did not send them to the right schools, either because they didn't want to pay, even though they had the money, or they couldn't afford it. Either way, this has the effect of making the Jews forget the Torah, forgetting to eat their bread. So this is just another interpretation of what it means that he forgot to eat his bread. Next pasuk, pasuk vav, mikol anchati daveka atzmi lebesari. From the voice of my anchati. Anchati means in Hebrew to sigh. You're catching your breath. Daveka atzmi lebesari. Look at this description. I endured so much pain that my bone cleaves to my flesh. As I told you before, bones cleave to flesh, that means there's nothing left. There's no flesh left. You can see skeletons in people. So had we not had any pictures, it would be hard to understand what does it mean, Davka Atzmi Lebesari. But we actually can see what some people looked like in the camps. This is a real description, Davka Atzmi Lebesari. And it's all Mikol Anchati, from my side. It was from so much that I prayed, so much that I cried out. I have nothing left, no energy left. So even though that's what he's describing, that there's nothing left for him to do, and this is the way he feels, this is actually the way many of them looked like. If you were to be able to go back in history, whether it was when a Jew was sold as a slave, whether it was during the temple era, the rabbis described to us the hunger that they suffered during some of those days. So we have no idea. Imagine today, in this country especially, people on the average eat well, are comfortable. They have no idea what this is. And they read this, oh, that's nice poetry. This is not just about poetry. This is describing a real situation where David HaMelech sees beforehand, through his prophecy, through divine inspiration, that this is what it will be like, and he's praying beforehand, and he's reminding us to pray when you see this. I'm preparing for you, he will tell us soon, I'm preparing for you these prayers. Next pasuk, Damiti likiat midbar haiti kechos choravot. Interesting verse. Here he describes us like owls, like certain birds that live in the desert, desolate places. Damiti likiat midbar, I'm like the bird, a certain bird, it's a type of owl I believe, that lives in the wilderness. Haiti kechos choravot, and I was like an owl in choravot, wasteland. Same thing like midbar, similar. places where human beings are not there. So he's comparing himself to such a bird. Why? These are birds that can be alone. Certain birds migrate together. If you've ever seen thousands and thousands of birds during the migration, it's a beautiful scene, how they're together. Then there are sometimes birds that either separate from the group, or that's the nature of the bird, that it's by itself. He's comparing himself to that type of a bird in such a wasteland where there's nobody else. Why? Why compare that to? I mean, there's no one else? Where have you been? Because of two reasons. Reason number one, the Jew was not just in Galut, in exile, in one place. He had to go from place to place. He was kicked out many, many times, just about from every country in Europe. So he was not in one place for a long time. He's also by himself. This is a description of loneliness. We should never know from this. There's all kinds of pain and suffering, whether it's illness or poverty, but there's also something called loneliness. And that's part of what he's describing over here. Who do I turn to? Where do I go? Being kicked out, not getting equal rights as citizens. The Jewish people suffered immensely in Europe and in the Muslim countries as well during different times. They never had peace for too long. So he's comparing the Jew during this time to a bird being by himself in the lonely desert, in the wasteland. Look at Pasuk Chet, and you will see that now he talks a bit differently. He says, Shakati veheye ketzipor boded al gag. This is a little bit different. It appears to be similar, but it's different. Verse 8, Shakati. The word Shakati is not very well understood. I've seen different commentaries about it. I prefer the interpretation of it sticking to one place. Being in one place for a long time, as opposed to those who translate it in haste. Because it has more to do with shakati, in other words, to be in a spot where you concentrate, either that, or where you stick to it, or whether you're persisting about something, persistent about doing something, about learning, for example. That's when we use the word lishkod. So here, shakati, how would it fit in? Shakati veyeh, if we assume that the interpretation means that I stood very much in one place, veyeh, and I was. What was that? What do you mean I was? I was ketzipor boded al gag, like a bird alone on a roof. Didn't he say that pretty much before? This is a little bit different. Here, he's talking about how he's all alone, but alone on a roof. So the commentaries tell us that this is also referring not just to the Jew who has been left alone, all by himself. No, that's the feeling that he has, that Hashem is not with him. No, this is talking about Hashem himself. Hashem says, Shakati ve'yeh, in my Bet HaMikdash I was present, and I was really there for a while, and I wanted to stay there, but unfortunately my kids left, and I have remained Ketzipor Boded al Gag, and I have remained the Shekhinah, as a lonely bird waiting for my kids to return. Now, why is this an important interpretation? Because soon you will see how he shifts gears and he turns the attention to Mashiach, to the Geulah. So it could be either one. Either it's a continuation from verse 7, where he's talking about loneliness, being by himself, not wanted by anyone, and having this feeling that Hashem perhaps is not with him. It could mean all of that too. Or it could be talking about the Shekhinah, feeling that I'm too in pain, as the rabbis tell us. Don't think that only the Jews are in pain. Whenever the Jews are in pain, the Shekhinah is also in pain. It's not happy with the situation right now. What else happened in the exile? All the days, till this very day, my enemies disgrace me. Just go to the United Nations. Every day, it's Kol Hayom, exactly the way he says it. Those who ridicule me curse me, using my name. Meholalai, those who ridicule me, they curse me using my name. You're just like a Jew. In other words, the Jew is used in a way to ridicule, to make fun of others, to curse. Is this anything new to you? No. But this is being said so many years in advance. Nothing has changed, and this has repeated itself. And people are wondering, what are we doing wrong? How come people don't learn the lessons of the Holocaust? Why is there still anti-Semitism? Well, part of it is because it's from above. Obviously, if we would behave ourselves, if we would do everything right, we wouldn't go through all of this. Still, regardless of the reasons for it, he still brings it up in the tefillah. This has to be mentioned. Because after all, we don't have to just believe, that's the way things are, there's no way out of it. We just have to live with it. No, there is a way out of it. And part of it is the tefillah. One has to turn to Hashem to ask for this. So he describes the details of this galut, of this long exile, how it's not just about being exiled and about being lonely, it's about persecution, it's about pain and suffering, it's about ridicule. The Jewish people have been broken, very, very broken as a result of that. Imagine, you can't get a promotion because you're Jewish. That is how it is today in Russia and in many other countries. They won't promote you, even though you're qualified, you're skilled and intelligent, just because you're Jewish. Don't you want the best people for the job? No, something bothers them. It's hard to figure out, and it's not our business to figure out, but this is the facts. And it's been like this all the time. So why is he telling this to us now? Not just for the prayer. I very much believe, personally I believe, that if somebody who's not a very religious individual has his doubts about the Jewish people, if they belong where they belong, if they're doing the right things or not, let him read a little bit what Tehilim writes. And he will hopefully be convinced, yes, there are enemies of God out there. Enemies. People who don't like religion. People, therefore, who will not like a people who believe in God and observe His commandments. Like Amalek. So we have to know this. We have to be convinced that this is true. There are such individuals who are not interested in that which is divine. They will make fun of you. These are enemies. Not everyone is like that, of course, but they exist out there. Pasuk Yud, Ki efer kalechem achalti v'shikuvai bivchi masachti. I have eaten ashes like bread and mixed my drink with tears. If you spoke to a Holocaust survivor, this too. Do you know that many of them went to the garbage dump to eat potato peels? And a relative of mine says that once he found a small piece of bread that already had ovish. It already had mold. Very, very moldy. We would be disgusted by it, right? For him, he says, Zaya mat'amim. He said, it was a delicacy for me. A piece of moldy, very moldy bread. That's what he's talking about here. Ki efer kalechem achalti. Eaten ashes like bread. This is what I've had to deal with. But what about when he says, V'shikuvai bivchi masachti? And mixed my drink with tears? Well, obviously he was crying a lot. That's the simple meaning. But the commentaries tell us that David the Melech for 22 years did not have the Ruach HaKodesh, did not have the divine inspiration. And that is when he cried so much that he used to fill up cups of tears. You think that this is something very, very unbelievable? In other words, it's hard to believe. The Baba Sali himself, of blessed memory, when he used to do Tikkun Chatzot, get up at midnight, that special prayer of midnight, and when his wife later on would walk in, she would discover a puddle of tears. He would sit down and cry. You know, the Tikkun Chatzot is a special prayer. This is what we're talking about here. There were big tzaddikim who cried so much that it is like they mixed their drink with their tears. Mipnei za'amcha v'kitzpecha, verse 11. Ki nesatani v'tashlicheni. Very important pasuk, I believe, even though the simple translation of 11 is, because of your anger and your wrath you have raised me up and then cast me down. That's a simple translation. We've seen this. Hashem raised us and then He cast us down. Because of what? Because of Za'amcha v'kitzpecha, because of your anger. You're upset at us. I really believe that in this pasuk, he is telling us, now you want to know why you fell so hard? What does it mean to fall hard? When a person was wealthy and then he falls, it is much more painful than if he was never wealthy. He just fell. You understand that? We all can agree on that, right? Right? The richer a person is and he falls, the more painful it is for him. So this is pretty much describing we were on top of the world. We had the Bet HaMikdash. We were elevated, but we were cast down. But I very much believe that in this pasuk, he's revealing to us the reason why we suffered so much. And really, the Torah speaks about it. You are an Am Segula. You are a chosen nation. You were chosen for a very important mission. And therefore, I took care of you. I took you out of Egypt. I performed so many miracles for you. Because I did so much for you, when I get upset, you're going to notice it. So here, we're getting an explanation of why it had to be so extreme. All right, people are sold as slaves, okay. People are mistreated, fine. They're exiled. They move around. But so much anti-Semitism, so much suffering, so much pain, Inquisition, Holocausts. There was not just one Holocaust. That's the one that we see pictures of. But you know there was a big Holocaust during the years 1648 to 1649 by Khmelnytsky and his gang, Polish-Ukrainian Gentiles who massacred a lot of people. And 300,000 Jews were killed. 300 Jewish communities approximately were destroyed. Who knows about that? People don't read history, so they don't know. So you want to know why all this happened? Why so much? Because of this, kinesatani. You once upon a time picked us up, and you made us who we are. So therefore, vatashlicheni, we have to realize that something is wrong. Why is everybody picking on us? Why so much suffering? Because kinesatani. Because we've been picked up so high, more is expected of us. Because so much is expected of us, then we have to be reminded somehow. We're not going to be reminded, we're going to completely forget about it, assimilate, and the whole mission is lost. Yamai ketzel natui vanika esev ivash. This is similar to what we said before. My days are like a fleeting shadow. Ketzel natui. It goes away, goes by. Vanika esev ivash, and I wither away like the grass. So this is also talking a little bit about the time, how the time goes by very quickly. But here, the emphasis is on mercy. Asking Hashem for mercy that because I wither so quickly, because the time goes by so quickly, have pity on me, that I should not die before my time, as we will see soon. He's asking that the situation be remedied, because otherwise we will not be able to accomplish what is expected of us. Some say that he's talking about that the days that we had the Bet HaMikdash, the first and second, were so short, Ketzel Natui. It only lasted 410 plus 420, 830 years we had a Bet HaMikdash. We're so much more years outside of Israel than we've been in Israel. So he could be talking about that too, that the good days have gone by so quickly, there were so very few, and our situation spiritually, not necessarily only physically, he speaks about that too, that spiritually people have become dried up, not only physically. And therefore, the situation is the way it is, that there are not as many Jews, even though, Baruch Hashem, we're still several million, they say I think about 13, 14 million, but right before World War II we were about 18 million. So we never caught up to that number yet. Plus, of course, you have to deal with assimilation and intermarriage. That's also taking away some of that, some of those numbers. And even though you may say, people always tell me, yeah, but Hashem is going to fix everything up anyway, right? He's going to bring everybody back, and there's going to be Tchiyat HaMetim, the dead will rise too. So nothing is lost. People don't realize that in the meantime, if our cause is weakened, the world suffers as a result. If the Jewish people who are supposed to be a light into the world are weakened, either because their members are not doing what they're supposed to do, or because many of those members have left, then our cause is weakened. We cannot accomplish what needs to be accomplished. The whole world suffers. So it's not only the Jews suffering. If the Jew suffers, you should know the world is suffering too. They don't know this. That's why the Midrash says if the non-Jewish world would only know what benefit they derive from the temple, the Bet HaMikdash, they would protect it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They would protect it. They have no idea that so much blessing came out from that Bet HaMikdash. So that is what he's describing here in a physical sense and in a spiritual sense. As the time goes by and we're not able to do what we're supposed to do, we become dried, we wither, we cannot be as effective. Our prayers are not the same, our Torah is not the same, our mitzvot are not the same. Pasuk Yud Gimel, you Hashem will be enthroned forever. And your remembrance is for all generations. Well, isn't that obvious? Yes, but he's using this as a comparison. Look, Hashem, you're around forever. We are not. So that is a simple comparison between verse 12 and 13. On the one hand, we spend very little time here. You're going to be around forever. So have pity on us. Right? Let us accomplish our mission. Let us accomplish what we're supposed to. That's a simple meaning. There's another meaning, however. He's about to describe the Messianic era. So he introduces this Pasuk Yud Gimel as a way of saying, Hashem, you've always been around. You always have kept your promise. Zichrecha ledor vador. And your remembrance, in other words, those that pray to you will continue to pray to you in every generation, asking of you to bring the Geulah, asking of you to bring Mashiach. So here he's preparing us for this important idea that generation that is reading this, whichever generation it may be, should focus on the fact that Hashem is around forever and pray to Him in your situation, wherever it may be, that He should bring about the Geulah, because the promises that He made through the prophets, He will keep. And what is that promise? That promise entails the following. So from Pasuk Yudalet, he begins to tell us what will be. A very famous Pasuk. This particular verse, number 14, is very famous. Look at the words, very important words. You will arise and have mercy on Zion, for it is time to be gracious to her, the appointed time has come. Okay, this is great news. For us, we can say it with confidence, I think. Yes, the time is coming. We see it. But what was he saying to generations years ago? Well, this simple idea is that Mashiach could have come then too, because we have a tradition that there's two kitzim. There's a kitz Geulah that can come be'ita or be'achishena. It can come at its appointed time, at the last possible moment, or it can come be'achishena, speedily. You could have asked Hashem to bring it about quickly. You didn't. So many years have gone by. Okay, but it could happen any time. It could come at any moment. But here, he's also giving us a siman. You know when you will know that the time has come, the Mashiach is coming? When what I've just described to you beforehand happens. When you see the Jewish people in the lowest of the lowest, bashefel, achi garua, in the worst of the worst, when they have given up hope, when things are out of control, with intermarriage and assimilation and heresy in the world, Holocaust, when you see those simanim, that is a sign that you will about to be gracious to her. You're about to turn to her and favor her. It's not a coincidence that right after the Holocaust, where 6 million Jews were killed, all of a sudden we're going home. All of a sudden everybody decides to go to Israel. How come? That did not happen after World War I. It did not happen after the Inquisition. It did not have to happen the pogroms. Why now? Because we've reached the bottom. As the Kabbalah says, that the future generations, the last generations, will reach the 50th level of tumah, of impurity. It's not just about trouble. It's not just about pain and suffering and war. It's about spiritual level being so low. So this pasuk here is very important pasuk. It's telling us when you see some signs, you will know that the time has come. Otherwise, we don't know when Mashiach has come. We're expecting it any day. Now, of course, this can last several generations. Since 1948, we have almost 3 generations. So, more or less, this is what our tradition says. This is how long it will be. It won't just happen overnight. But this is very good news. When you see this, this is a good sign, because this means Mashiach is coming. So we're asking, of course, that this should be also with Rachamim. Ki ata takum terachem Tzion, that it should be with mercy, and not with pain and suffering. Because our tradition says that Mashiach can come as a C-section. A woman has a C-section, it's an operation, it's painful. Or it could be a natural birth. Imagine contractions only lasting for 4 or 5 minutes, and the water breaks, and that's it, and the baby comes out, mazal tov. She didn't even feel it. The baby came out. That would be beautiful. That's the way we would want it to be. Rabbis tell us, yes, it will be somewhat like that, because a Mashiach yavo pitomiyut. It will be suddenly, out of nowhere. We weren't thinking about it on that moment. We knew, in general terms, yes, Mashiach needs to come already. But the actual moment when he comes will be all of a sudden. So people will be in shock. Some will have a good shock. They'll be looking forward to it. And for some it will be a very, very painful shock. He didn't believe in this. That's why the rabbis tell us the coming of the Mashiach and finding a lost object and the bite of a scorpion are all similar. The coming of Mashiach is compared to the bite of a scorpion and the finding of a lost object? Yes, because for some people it's going to be like the sting or the bite of a scorpion. This is true. I didn't realize this. They're going to be in shock. It will be painful to them. But for others it will be metziat aveda, finding such a beautiful wedding ring that you lost. Expensive wedding ring. You know what it's like? Imagine a woman lost her wedding ring in the sink. 30 years later, the plumber changes the pipes. There's your ring. Can you imagine the happiness? It was always there. It was in the trap. It didn't wash down to the sewer. And it could be, I've heard stories where people have lost it in a lake and somebody fished it up. Fished up the ring or something. Or the fish, it wasn't the fish that swallowed. Anyway, it's metziat aveda. It will be like a lost object that's been lost for so long. It will bring tremendous happiness to those who have been looking forward to it. Kiratzu avadecha et avaneha v'et afarach yichonenu. This is a very interesting pasuk too. Also, a verse that is mentioned a lot by the rabbis. The translation is, for your servants cherish her stones and love her dust. The stones and the dust. So it means like this. In the Gemara you find there were certain rabbis who every time they reached Israel, they would kiss the ground. They would kiss the rocks. They showed so much love for the Holy Land. This is the land where we can observe the mitzvot. It's not just the dirt. This is the land where we can observe the mitzvot. This is the land of our forefathers. So they showed so much anxiousness to get there, to be there, to live there. This is partly being described here. Your servants very, very much demonstrated that. They cherished her stones. That's one interpretation. They always wanted to be there. But why is that important for us to know? Obviously, this is part of his prayer. Hashem, we want to be there. Your servants always cherished. No, but it's more than that. Do you know how many Jews moved to Israel when all there was stones there? They were willing to give up their careers, their homes, their luxuries and comforts in Chutz La'aretz, outside, just to be with rocks and stones and dust. A land that was not fertile for a little while. Very difficult to raise a family there. It still is. It's not easy. Economically there, it's a lot better than it was years ago. There were Jews who were prepared for self-sacrifice. Why? Kiratzu avadecha et avanea. They appreciated it for what it was. The Kuzari, if I recall correctly, brings something very interesting about this pasuk. The reason David HaMelech brings this up during Messianic times, Kiratzu avadecha et avanea, they cherished her stones and dust. Why now, more than ever? Why bring it up now? And he says, what was the mistake of the spies that went to spy in Israel? That they did not appreciate the land. they did not want to enter the land. They did not want to go on with their journey to Israel, the spies, because of their fears or whatever. So they distanced themselves. They showed no interest in the land. So he says that right before Mashiach comes, there will be Jews who will be so attached to the land itself, just to the land itself, not necessarily to other things, even though they should be attached to Torah, they should be attached to mitzvot. Ultimately, that's what it's all about, being Jewish. It's not just a piece of land. But they will, for some reason, show so much interest in the land, not to give up an inch. Why now more than ever? Why is it so important to you, this piece of land? Even though it is important, but why make a big fuss out of it? The fuss is because this is the tikkun, he says. That's his interpretation. That this will show a love because once upon a time they showed not enough love, or they did not show interest. So in order to be mitaken, to rectify those who did not have an interest, who showed no interest, there will be a lot of people who, on the contrary, will show a love just for the ground, just for the land itself, that they want to be there. And we see that today. That there are a lot of Jews who emphasize the love of the land. They're being called Zionists by some, even though every Jew really is a Zionist in some way, but they are emphasizing the land. Now, I need to just point this out. As beautiful as an interpretation of that may be, we must remember that the ikar, the more important thing about Israel, is not the land itself, but the observance of Torah and mitzvot in the land. Otherwise, the land does not have that value. It has to be that we observe the Torah and the mitzvot in the land. But there will be those who will be in love with the land. They will show great interest about it, and this could be in order to rectify the past. Very possible that this is also connected to what this says. So, Ata takum terachem Zion. When we see certain things happening, that Hashem is showing us favor again, He's being gracious to us, this will be a sign that Mashiach is coming. Things are going in that direction. Jews are going back home. So this is all indicative that this is already beginning to happen. So Ata takum, you will get up, and terachem, you will show that you have Rahmanut on Zion, and that for us will be the sign, Ki et lechenena ki ba moed. We will know for a fact that the time has come. V'yiru goyim et shem Adonai b'chol malchei haaretz et kivodecha. At that point, all those nations that persecuted us, all those that didn't believe in you, all those that made fun of you, what will happen with them? When they see all of this, they will fear you. V'yiru goyim et shem Hashem. They will fear the name of Hashem. B'chol malchei haaretz et kivodecha. And all the kings of the earth your glory. Here it says et Shem Hashem. Why the Shem Hashem? Because the Shem Hashem cannot be pronounced today. We say Ad Hashem instead. But in the Bet HaMikdash, it will be said. When that time comes, when Hashem reveals Himself, the whole world will know that name. And that name represents what? Hayo Oveh V'yeh. He's always been. It's the same God. He is and He will be. Eternal. So all of a sudden, when they see all of this coming true, they will realize those prophecies that the prophet said are for real. That will bring fear into them, including all the Malchei Haaretz, all the big shots, the kings who thought that they're on top of the world. They will realize that it is you, Hashem, that they have to give honor to. Ki bana Adonai Zion nir'a b'chvodo. It's a continuation that they will notice that Hashem has built Zion, He has appeared in His glory. What glory? The building of the Bet HaMikdash. There's also a tradition that at that time, when Mashiach appears and Hashem reveals Himself, He will reveal to us all the secrets of the Torah. That is also His kevodo, His honor. So this will be an incredible time when we see that Hashem rebuilds Zion. But wait a minute, rebuilds Zion? Isn't it being rebuilt now? What does it mean that Hashem rebuilds Zion? The first Bet HaMikdash, the second Bet HaMikdash, we built. It was destroyed. Well, guess what? The third one He builds, and that will never be destroyed. The Zohar says that a part of the Bet HaMikdash comes down from Shamayim. We don't understand how that is, but something will come down from above, Mashiach, of course, is involved in the building of the Beit HaMikdash too. That's part of his job. If he does not do that, then you know he's not Mashiach. That's the way, one of the things he does, that he proves that he is Mashiach. So in this pasuk, Kibana Hashem Tzion, you have an emphasis on Hashem being the one to build the Beit HaMikdash. And that, of course, is his kevodo, his glory. All right, from pasuk Yud Chet and on, it only appears that he's going back to what he was doing at the beginning, in speaking about prayer. But you will see how this fits in very, very nicely. Pana el tfilat ha'arar velo bazat tfilatam. So Hashem turns to the arar. I'm going to explain what arar means in a moment. Velo bazat tfilatam, and he did not despise their prayer. Arar, it's a very unusual word. You don't come across it too much. That's where there's different opinions as to what exactly is he trying to say. The simple meaning behind arar is a tree. A tree that grows in the desert by itself, doesn't bear fruit. It's all by itself, it's lonely, it has nothing to give. He's talking about an individual who doesn't have too many good deeds perhaps, does not observe too many mitzvot. Hashem will still turn to his prayer. Velo bazat filatam, but he will not despise their prayer. Wait a minute, I thought he was talking in the singular, one, and now he's talking about the plural. You see the difference? He starts off filat ara, then he says lo bazat filatam, their prayer. So the rabbis tell us, yes, the prayer of the tzibur, you have 10 Jews or more, is much more powerful. When you are praying by yourself, which you may at times, then you have to have a lot more kavanah if you want your prayer to be heard. So Hashem will turn. He will turn if the individual does pray intensely. But lo bazat filatam. But when you have 10 Jews or more, when you have a group, that he doesn't despise them, even if they don't have kavanah, the fact that they got together, he said tfilah betzibur, has more koach, it has more power than the tfilah b'yachid, than praying by yourself. So there's no comparison. You can pray by yourself. Definitely, if you're by yourself, you have no shul, no synagogue, fine. But if you do, go to a shul, go to the synagogue, because lo bazah, that kind of a prayer Hashem does not despise. He always pays more attention to a prayer of the tzibur, of the group. So why does he begin now to tell us about this? Because it could be that he's referring to the Messianic times, and that's all we have is our prayers. In other words, even though we're not as righteous as in the past, and we don't have the great rabbis and tzaddikim, but not, he will turn to our prayers nevertheless. Tikatev zot ledor acharon ve'am nivra yehalel yah. Let this be written for the last generation, you see? Here he's talking about how this prayer, let it be written. Let the last generation, the generation of Mashiach, let them read this. Ve'am nivra yehalel yah. Let them know this so that the newborn nation will praise Hashem. Newborn? Yes. We're being born again. We're born again because the land is coming back to be what it used to be. It was fertile. The children are coming back home. It's being rebuilt. It's being renewed. It's being reborn. The language has been reborn. Hebrew, just about 100 years ago, a little over 100 years ago, it started being reborn. So let this nation, who doesn't know too much about Hashem, let them read this. I'm writing it for them. Let them see how this was written so much in advance, because we knew all this. And let them see that this is true. This is what they should know, that all along Hashem has looked down from these holy heights from heaven. He gazed upon the earth. Yes, Hashgacha, Hashem's supervision has always been around. He's always looked down, not like other kings who don't know what's going on with every individual citizen. He has looked at every detail. He's looked down from above as to what's going down here. He has said this many times. Very important part of our faith is that we believe Hashem does not only create the world, He did not only create the world, He actually supervises it. And He's been doing that all along. Even though it appeared that He was not around, He concealed His face. No, He's been around. He's been looking down and watching over us. Lishmoa in katasir lefateh b'nei temuta. And who was He looking at? Verse 21. He heard the cry of those who are bound to untie those who are doomed to die. In katasir, those who are tied, those who are doomed to die. Very difficult to understand. It could be he's talking about the 10 lost tribes. They are like in prison, that he will hear their prayers, he will release them. But he's also talking about Bnei Temuta, those that are doomed to die. Those prayers have worked in the past. People who are about to die, who may have a tumor, who are terminally ill according to doctors. There have been miracles. They've turned to him and he has released them. He has untied them. All the time. That's what Ashkafam, that's what Ishkif means. He has looked down from above. And he has released us from all kinds of troubles in the past. Those who are in prison, those who don't see any way out, those who are in deep trouble. That's what he's describing here. Verse 22. So that the name of Hashem be declared in Zion and his praise in Yerushalayim. This will be done by all the nations, not just by the Jews. In other words, they will all realize this. So that's why he says here, Lesaper b'Tzion Shem Hashem. Just like he said before, it's Shem Hashem. Here the emphasis is on the name of Hashem. They will have clarity what this God is, as much as human beings can know. Something that they did not know before. This is a God that not only created the world, he's been around forever, and he supervises, he's involved, he actually hears prayers. You can turn to him even if things appear dismal. There's no chance that he will live. He's Bnei Tmuta. The doctor said he has 3 days to live. They will realize all of this. We know this now. We learn about this. Lesaper b'Tzion. People will be talking about miracles that they've seen. And you know what? There's miracles all over the world. Not just in Israel. Everywhere. They'll be talking about this back. They'll be talking about this when Mashiach comes. When be'ikavetz amim yachdav u'mamlachot lavod Adonai, this will be at a time when they will all gather, the nations and the kingdoms will gather together to serve Hashem. This is when it will happen. All of this is, by the way, described by the prophets, that this will take place. Here he's just pointing out this detail, that all of this will happen when Hashem reveals himself and when all the nations come together. Yeah. Right now, they're not yet together, but very soon, whoever is still around will be together. The last few Pesukim are very interesting. It goes back to describing also a difficult situation, but I believe that this is also connected to the Geulah, and you'll see how. Ina baderech kochi kitzar yamai. He weakened my strength on the way, he shortened my days. What does that have to do with anything? Rabbis tell us that there are 3 things that shortens a person's life. Derech, he travels a lot. Sin, and fear.
What?
Fear. Derech, as he points out here, a person who's on the road a lot, travels a lot. It shortens his life. It stresses him out. Sin and pahad, people who have gone through fear, whether it's in the battle of war, shock, all that pachad, it weakens a person, and it could shorten his life. So he says, Ina baderech kochi kitzar yamai. Okay, so your days have been shortened as a result of all that pain, but why say it now? I think, if you knew that, I believe, in my humble opinion, that this is related to Messianic times, because he will tell us, don't think that all that suffering was in vain. This was a kapara. When a person goes through some painful situation, and it may have shortened his life, it's not in vain. This served as a kapara. You're being redeemed now. The Geulah is coming because of all that inna baderech kochi, all that pain and suffering that you had to endure. However, you still have to pray that you shouldn't die young. My God, do not remove me in the midst of my days, you whose years endure through all the generations. Hashem, you're going to be around forever. We're not. So the little bit that we have, don't take away that too. So this is important to pray for. Hashem, please protect me, that the years that I'm intended, that you have planned for me to live, I should live them out and not shorten them because of things that I can't control. Could also be talking about, as I think the Targum says, about the world to come. Because Hashem is eternal. Why mention it here? Because we will be with Hashem in the world to come. So he's bringing that into the verse as well, that even though our lives are shortened here sometimes, we will hopefully be together with Hashem in the world to come. In In the beginning, you laid the foundations of the earth, and the heavens are the work of your hands. So here too, he's saying what he said before, that you were always around from the very beginning. It is you who created everything. Why point it out over here? To strengthen the emunah of those who don't see it that way, who still believe in a big bang or evolution. No. Lefanim ha'aretz yasada, you are the one that established everything before. And you are the one that is responsible for this. Plus, what's going to happen soon is that you're going to be renewing the world, as we're going to see in the next verse. So it is you who have created this world as we know it. But look at the next verse. They will perish, but you will endure. All of them will wear out like a garment. You will exchange them like a robe, and they will vanish. Referring to the earth, referring to anything that we know. These things may disappear. These things may vanish, even though they're not necessarily vanishing. But you've made them as we know them. But you will renew them like a person who takes off a suit that is no longer good on him. It's worn out. It's torn. This is referring to the new world. And that is what our tradition says, that Hashem will renew the world. When Mashiach comes, you've been around forever and you've made the world, the physical world, as we know it. But there will come a time very soon, kalevush tachlifem ve'achlofu. You will replace them with a new garment. The world to come will be something brand new. But you remain the same, your years will not end. Obviously, Hashem will continue to be forever. That which He made, which is physical, may not endure forever. But Hashem does remain forever. Something that we don't understand, but we don't have to figure it out. It is just part of our emunah that we realize that Hashem has always been around, will always be around. Very important idea that Hashem is eternal. Something that is hard for us to relate to because we are physical and not eternal. So it is emphasized to remind us Hashem is very, very different. Hashem will always be around. He will therefore keep His promises from a long time ago, even though it's many years to come. The children of your servants will abide, their seed shall be established before you. Obviously, this is talking about that the Jewish people, their children of your servants, will one day come back. You will restore them. And that will be proof, of course, that everything that you've said all along was true. That even though they've been dispersed, they've been exiled, they've gone out to countries all over the world, nonetheless, when the time comes, they will all gather in a miraculous way. And that, of course, will be the sign that Mashiach has come. Amen.